Thank you, Marco. Wonderful.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Good. I'm just standing in front of you. I'm sorry, buddy. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Jill, and I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing here at Bayview on the beautiful Lower Queen Anne. Thank you so much for being here. I see a lot of familiar faces and a lot of new faces here, so we're so grateful you're here. So before I turn the show over to the real stars here who are behind me, I would love to give just a brief overview of Bayview and a little bit about the program outline today. I'll be really transparent. I was in my office this morning and I was thinking, what am I going to say to describe Bayview in just a few minutes? It's a difficult task because we've been in existence for over 60 years now, 61 years. And all of a sudden, Catherine Morgan, the late Catherine Morgan, she was a beloved resident here, came to mind. And I talked with her a few years back, and she was describing Bayview as this. Bayview is an ongoing living experience, an ongoing living experience. And that really stuck with me. And so it deeply aligned with our mission statement, which is transforming the experience of aging. And so we are very excited to share with you stories and helpful tips and tricks by our wonderful residents here who have a lot of courage to do this panel. So thank you to all of them. I want to give a quick shout out. There are some out-of-state folks here who are watching our live stream. So we are live streaming right behind you, and that's Dee Dee. She's from North Carolina. So Dee Dee, if you're here, hello. And also Judy, who's from West Virginia. So we have quite a few people who are watching from out of state. So I'm grateful for everyone here. All right, so today's outline is we're going to start with a panel event. It's going to be about 45 minutes long, and we are asking that you reserve your questions till the end of the panel event, and we'll have Q&A. We just want to be mindful of everyone's time as well as yours. And if you don't have all your questions answered, don't worry. Myself and the panelists here are all going to be tour guides for you all. So we're going to break into groups right afterwards. I'm going to look at my cheat sheet here. All right. Well, I think without further ado, I would love to pass it along to the group here. So let me do a switcheroo with the mic. Okay, can everyone hear me okay? It's not as loud? Okay. So, Susan, if you can start with everyone with your name, how long you've been here, and why did you move to Bayview?
Hi, my name is Susan, and I've been here since June of 2019. And I moved to Bayview because I had looked at many places, and I chose this one. And later in my presentation, I'll give you more details about that. It was the right size. I saw people doing all kinds of things. Our studio was busy. There were meetings in the midnight room. There were people in the library. There were some facilities that I went to where I didn't see anybody. I wondered where everybody was. So I love the light of this place that comes in through all the windows. and I love the vivaciousness of the people that were here doing things. So my topic today is barriers to moving into Bayview.
Are we doing all the way down the line or?
Oh, yes, so sorry, Susan, just quick introduction and we'll pop right back to you.
Hello, we are Chuck and Sue Jackals. We've lived here for 3 years. We moved all of 6 blocks to get here from our condo. And we were thinking about moving from our condo to an apartment. But once we saw Bayview and got to know Bayview, we said to ourselves, why in the world would we move twice in order to get to Bayview? So we just moved to Bayview, and I'm really glad we did.
Well, I don't have much to add, except one thing which has struck me a number of times. We moved in December of 2019, and you recall that 2 months later, we were on complete lockdown because of the pandemic. If you had said to me in December of 2019, there's a pandemic coming, and it's going to be very contagious, and a lot of elderly are going to be very sick and die, and it's just going to be miserable. Would you like to move into a community living setup? I would have probably said, let's go on the waiting list and wait a while. And what I have to say is that despite all of that, this has been a very good experience. And I felt very safe and secure and enjoyed it very much.
Hello, I'm Leela Haley Oaks, and I'm the newest member, resident of Bayview here on this panel. I've been here 1 year and 2 months now. I moved to Bayview from the east side of Queen Anne, actually, not very far, less than a mile. And it was after researching a lot of places, and Bayview just seemed to be a good fit. And I'm glad I made the move.
My name is Dottie Neufeld. I've been living here for 10 years. I looked at a lot of places. I really wasn't thinking of moving downtown. I was living in Shoreline, so I kind of looked at the north end, and I just came here on a lark. Bayview had everything on my list, plus a wonderful walkable neighborhood, and that was important to me. So the day that I saw the studio, I said, yes, I want to move in it. First I said, I need to think about this. It's a big decision. By the time I got home, I picked up the phone and said, who do I need to talk to qualify? I'd already made the decision.
Thank you all so very much. So there's a couple of topics that we're going to really focus on, and we hope that it speaks to all of you. Moving into a life plan community is a monumental step, and moving anywhere is a monumental step. So, and everyone here is in different stages as well. So Susan, you were just starting off too on the whole process of moving. You're talking about downsizing, you're talking about the whole process of partner vendors that will help you to move, and also a big topic, which is timing of your move. We'd love to see if you can kind of shed light on all of those topics for us.
So how do we make the decision to move? As Jill just said, it's one of the biggest probably decisions that we make in our lifespan. And so a lot of times when I'll talk to people about moving to a life care plan community, they'll say, oh, I'm just not ready. I'm doing well in my own home. Well, when is ready? The myth that you have to be on a decline or you've had a declining event is when most people think that they'll then move in. That's just the opposite. You want to enter when you have energy, vitality, and health to enjoy all that a continuing care retirement community has to offer. So some people move in their 60s. They may even be working. Some people move into their early to mid 70s. The research shows that don't go any later than 78 to 82, that kind of 4 years is one of the best times to move in. You certainly can move in sooner for various reasons, but don't wait because you're doing so well. That's when we want you to move in. You want to leave time, this is a gift of time, and you want to leave time to enjoy all there is to enjoy in such a community. The data, the research shows that those that move into a lifespan community increase their lifespan by approximately 8 years. That's impressive. I think it's partly the nutrition that we get, the socialization that we have, and the vitality and the activities. The second barrier is, I have lived in my home for 40 years, and the thought of having to downsize is just overwhelming. I cannot do it. It is overwhelming, and it's a lot of work, but there are also a lot of options. You can do it the DIY, the do-it-yourself option, which is what I did. I started doing a drawer or a closet at a time. I enlisted the help of all my family and friends, my children and others. Offer them some family heirlooms. Offer them things that you'd maybe like to keep in the family. Another option is decide what to bring to Bayview and simply put the rest in an outside storage unit to deal with later. I have several people on my floor that have done just that. I haven't seen them deal with the later though. The next option, and the one that is probably I would recommend the most if you are able, is to hire a company, we call them transition companies, that offer to make your move easy. And I'm going to give you an example. I have someone on my floor who, because of her disabled husband, simply could not do the work involved. She hired one of these companies. They came in, she and her husband left. They made decisions about what they wanted to bring to Bayview. The rest of the things this company put on an online auction and actually earned them about $3,000 or $4,000. The day of their move, they went away for the day. This transition company moved them, put everything away, made up their bed, even to putting their little knickknacks on the bookcase that they had in their house. They arrived back about dinner time and went to bed. Everything was put away and unpacked except for the pictures on the wall. And if you decide where you want your pictures, Bayview Maintenance will hang those for you. So another barrier is that people say, I'm afraid I will not be able to make friends, or there will be cliques. Bayview has a robust mentor program. We will accompany you to the dining room for the first few days if you wish, and we will make sure that you are comfortable and that you are introduced to people. Bayview is an inclusive, friendly, and accepting. It's kind of an unwritten rule here. For example, in the dining room, everyone has gone through this transition. And if you walk into the dining room and there's an empty chair and you go up and say, may I sit here? The answer is yes. Another barrier is I am an introvert and I don't want to always be socializing and doing activities. You do not need or have to partake in any activities. There are no expectations. You can do what you want, where you want, when you want. You are free and independent here. And then lastly, there are finances. I am not going to go into finances, but if there's an issue about finances, please talk to Jamie Hart, who's our social worker, and to Joyce Doucette, who's our chief financial officer. Make an appointment, because there's all kinds of price structures depending on the size of your apartment, where it's located, etc. I am an RN elder care manager. I was an RN for 42 years, and I haven't been in all, but I have been I've had clients and patients in a number of care facilities here in Seattle, from Everett and Marysvale down to South Seattle, and I chose Bayview.
Susan,
Thank you. That was great. I'm going to talk about, Chuck and I are going to talk about residence life, and I'm going to talk about the mentor program and the resident-led activities. But first of all, as a segue, I just want to say when downsizing was traumatic for me, and I really got through it by offering things to my family, like she said, and I found out that my daughter loved the dishes we had been using for all these years that she grew up with, that I was very attached to. I gave them to her. Now when we go to their house, I get to use my dishes. It's fabulous. The other thing is, to ease the trauma, I went shopping in my own house. I treated it like a place I could go to shop for things to bring to Bayview. And I actually ended up with a set of matching furniture, which I'd never had before. I got rid of all that unmatching stuff. Anyway, enough of that. I need to address my own topic. The first of which is the mentor program that Susan's already said a little bit about. But you'll learn the name of your mentor ahead of time. The mentors are supported by a resident-run committee, the Welcome Committee, and we work very hard to make sure that your transition to Bayview is as easy as possible and as tailored to your needs as can be. And so when you move in, maybe on the first day, you're going to be exhausted, and your mentor will stop by and say, hey, is there anything you need? Can I get your dinner and bring it up to you? Or, something like that. You don't need to start interacting with your mentor. Your mentor has a list of about 20 different things that they're going to introduce you to at Bayview. For example, the keys. You'll have a fob and 3 keys, and you need to know where to use those. You might be interested in finding your storage unit to go move in stuff. Your mentor will help you do that. All of the security issues, emergency line, how to use the phones, how to order a work order if you need something done, as simple as changing a light bulb to a more complex, such as hanging all your pictures. Your mentor will help you with that and a myriad of other things that I'm not going to go into. When you're all settled in, you'll be ready to reach out, if you so desire, to a myriad of other activities that we have here, most of which are resident-led. A lot of places that you would visit, they have a staff member that's in charge of activities, and they're kind of one size fits all for everybody. Here, the activities depend on the interests and the talents of the residents, and we have many residents of all kinds here, from artists to musicians to lawyers to teachers to doctors, you name it, they're here, and we can do activities based on the talents of the residents and the interest of the residents. So we have 3 kinds of committees. Standing committees that do things that recur, such as the arts and crafts, the events, the excursions. We have a child care center that is a preschool here, 3 months to preschool. And if you want to interact with the kids, you can volunteer down there. It's a fabulous experience. We have other committees such as the program committee that helps organize programs, and the welcome committee that oversees the mentor program. Then there are committees that have to do with special interests. It would be games like bridge, mahjong, Rummikub, Scrabble, all those games. And there's arts and crafts committee. There's a calendar committee. You may have seen the Bayview calendar. Ask to see it if you haven't seen it. Those pictures were all taken by talented residents. We have a hobby shop that has woodworking equipment in it. If you have a passion, and of course, my favorite, the garden committee, because I'm a gardener, an incurable gardener. So if you have a passion, no matter what it is, you will be able to pursue it here at Bayview. So don't think you're giving that up. In fact, you're going to be able to pursue it in ways that you have never thought were possible. That's about it on the committees.
Can I chime in real quick, right before Chuck? Sorry, there's a bit of a delay with the mic.
This one's probably easier. Can I chime in real quick, Sue, with what you mentioned? You know, as a nonprofit,
We're run also by a volunteer board of directors, and we have resident representation on there as well. So it's very telling that we're very much self-governance when it comes to resident life here. Residents drive activities and programming. That's what Sue was speaking into, and so it's a great segue to Chuck, who actually sits as our VP in our residents council. So Chuck, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you. So you've heard something about the range of groups you can join, groups of committees you might want to be a member of. That's all something, action that you take yourself. There's one committee that you're automatically enrolled in, and that's the floor you live on. We're organized by floors of independent living. I live on the 6th floor. So the floor of the members of the 6th floor are a committee. And those of you who served on committees know that you have to have officers, of course. And so we've got a chair and a vice chair and a treasurer and a secretary. But something that's unusual, I've never been on a committee before that had a sunshine agent as one of the officers. We have a sunshine agent. And this neighbor is responsibility for honoring birthdays, memorials, new moved in residents, other people who might have some important life event happening, with a card or with some flowers or something to make us aware of this person and shed some sunlight on them. So your neighbors are people you see every day. You use the same elevators, you walk in the same hallway, so you definitely will get to know them. You'll be able to meet with them once a month from June through September, or from September through June. We have floor meetings, and we deal with the responsibilities and the concerns that the floor might have. Say, well, what sort of things might they be? Well, you have a common area on each floor. It's an area that looks kind of like a living room. It's got some chairs in it and so forth. And it's in the center of the floor. The floor is T-shaped, and it's at the intersection of the 3 branches. And that's an area where people sit and converse and do things. It's a common area, and so the floor governs it, so to speak, and decides what will be done there, when it will be done, and so forth. For example, on the 6th floor, we have dinners on holidays, and people bring food and drink, and we eat with, I'd say, about 2/3 of the community attending most of them. That's one of the things we do there. Another thing we govern is the decor. There are some nice murals and artwork hung in most of these common areas, but the choices of the artwork and so forth were made by the residents. So that's one of the reasons that the floors look very different. As you tour today, you'll notice a variety of appearance. Other things that the floor is concerned about are services. If you have problems in your own unit, you can contact directly. You can get a work order to get something fixed if it's not working or whatever you need done. But when there are issues that seem to affect more members of the floor than just one, it sort of becomes a floor issue. For example, if the floor feels something needs to be done about the way housekeeping is provided, or something else that they might be concerned with, the floor meeting is a place where that's brought up and discussed, and then the floor chair can bring that concern forward in kind of an organized manner. One area which gets some interest is the laundry. We have a washer and a dryer that are shared, and the floor sort of determines how that goes about, how the sharing takes place. But during this last year, at one point, one of our neighbors pointed out that she was unable to use the dryer effectively. That's because she sits on a walker when she's in there. She has a hard time bending over. And the dryer was a standard front-load dryer like most of us have seen all of our lives, and was sitting on the floor in there. It was too low for her to bend over. So I was able to raise that issue with facilities, and they responded with the company that leases this equipment to us. And pretty soon we had basically an ADA dryer. It's on a platform. It sits up about a foot or 14 inches higher, and now she can reach it easily. So that's the sort of thing that the floor can more easily do as a unit than individuals can do on their own. We do emergency planning. We have someone called the floor ambassador. Most places they'd be called the floor warden. Here they're called the ambassador. And we actually have 2 of them. And their job is to serve on a building-wide committee dealing with primarily with earthquakes and fire, and have procedures that we have to be aware of, how we should behave in such circumstances. And they check on us in case we have an earthquake, see if we're in the apartment and we're all right and what's going on and so forth. So those are some of the kinds of concerns and issues that we bring up at these meetings. Now the next level, of course you always have levels of governance, then the next level is the resident council. And the floor chair, the chair of your floor, is a member of that council. So the council consists of the representative from each floor plus 4 officers in addition. We have monthly meetings, and our bylaws tell us, I'll read them, that our goals are number 1, to serve as a liaison between the residents and the administration, and number 2, to promote the welfare and happiness of the residents. So that's basically what the council does. And the way it accomplishes it is by who it invites as guests. We always invite the CEO, Nancy Weinbeck, to come, and then we look at our issues that we have on the agenda. And if we have something that is a food issue, then we would invite Dan Gelman, our Director of Culinary Services, to come. In any event, we get the administrators who we need to talk to at the meeting. We raise these issues, we converse with them, and we almost always get some sort of a satisfactory resolution. We've talked about transparency, and one of the things that looks transparent, to me at least, is that when we're in this meeting and we have Nancy, our CEO, telling us that something will get done, I know that we're not a unit of some regional or national company, and that she actually has to go back to her office and talk to her district supervisor to see if she can really do it. She's at the top. So it's a very transparent operation. If she says it can be done, then it can probably be done. And if she doesn't feel it can be done, she'll try to discuss it with us and find out what would be a satisfactory solution instead of the one we recommended. So what else do we do? Well, some of the issues we've discussed during the year that I thought just sort of highlights, we talked about security. Sometimes residents want to know if the building is being kept secure, and if we have good video monitoring of the doors and so forth. We've talked about that. We've talked about food. We've talked about housekeeping, what's done when your apartments are cleaned and what services are provided then. We've talked about transportation. We try to provide, Bayview tries to provide van transportation on medical appointments and on grocery store runs and so forth. And we've talked about that with the administration about how well that was working and so forth. We even talked about the dog park. Those of you who own dogs may have noticed. Those of you who own dogs may have noticed we have a dog park here. And of course that raises issues. Some people want it improved and some people want the dogs to be quiet and what have you. But anyhow, this is a place where we can talk about it and so forth. As the last thing I'll mention, something that we're very proud of is that the council supervises the employee holiday fund. A committee is appointed, and that committee raises a very large sum of money from among us as donations to this fund, and it's given to the employees as a holiday gift, which they received already. That's sort of a highlight of what we're doing.
Thank you so much, Chuck. You know, I think Sue and Chuck did a great job in kind of giving a glimpse of resident life here. I think a really unique part of Bayview, and a lot of communities do this, is we evolve over the years. And so, you know, depending on the needs and desires of residents that are current residents and the needs and desires of residents who are incoming, the next generation, we evolve our services and, of course, our amenities as well. We're going to talk about this a little later, but, you know, in the last year, we hired a wellness nurse, and she is a dedicated RN for independent living residents, and that's a fairly new service. The need of having an RN for residents was desired by residents, and so we now have that service. So again, we reflect the needs of the residents over the years, and we evolve and maintain that creativity and innovation. And so thank you, Sue and Chuck, for touching on that. So our next lovely panelist is Layla. Layla, you hold a fresh perspective here at Bayview. You're fairly new. In fact, Layla, you moved in during COVID, which was pretty amazing. And you sit on the board of our foundation as well. So, you know, in the tours that I hold over the last couple of months, I often get the question of, you know, how is your resident and staff engagement and bond? Or what is your administration transparency like? You know, you move in here, this is your new home, what does that look like? And so can you help out with our guests of what it looks like with administrative transparency, and maybe we can take it from there and go.
Yes, that's an important aspect to Bayview residents. And administrative transparency is channeled down from the CEO here. Nancy is very open to questions and We have monthly town hall meetings over which she presides. And everything is up for discussion, no matter whether it's COVID. During COVID, that was a concern because everybody had questions about that. Do we always have to wear masks? Do we have to be tested, and how often? And these questions Nancy fielded with great grace, I think, and got us through COVID relatively unscathed. The budget is also another point that comes up in the town hall meetings and is open for discussion. So our CEO is very open about the need for increases, where the money goes, why. I remember she called a young man in from a company that provides food in the dining room, and how the scarcity of some items was apparent all over the country, why it was hard to get some items, and those costs were going up and are reflected in the prices that we pay here. So that was all an open discussion in a town hall meeting, and residents, I think, feel really more involved when it's an open discussion rather than a bunch of rumors floating around. Communication is very open, and that was important during COVID. When I moved in, right after I moved in, things were shut down and our meals were brought to us in our rooms. And so we were confined to our rooms for meals. When I had toured Bayview originally, one of the places that I enjoyed touring was the dining room, which was very open, and everybody seemed to be enjoying themselves. So that was no more at that point. But we got weekly communications about the rate of COVID and how it affected the community, and I think that was very helpful. There is the Bayview Weekly, which is a publication that comes out every week. There is the Bayview Monthly, which comes out every month, and there's also another publication called The Blabber. I'm not sure what that is about, but I know that residents can post items in there if they're wanting to sell something. For example, they can post it in the Blabber, or if they're needing someone to care for their pet just temporarily. I've seen that in the Blabber also. There is also a K4 Connect app, and that has proven invaluable. It's an app that you have placed on your smartphone or your tablet or your computer, and you can access all the events that are going on at Bayview. You can access the daily menus for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You may also access the resident directory. There are names and apartment numbers and pictures of other residents, and that's all on your K4 app. You may have noticed the monitors that are around in the lobby area out here, and there are also monitors on each floor. And that is part of that K4 connection. Also, there's channel 1982 that you can tune into on your television, and that also gives you Bayview information. That's an in-house channel. Another important somebody's calling. Another important part part of Bayview is the foundation. And the Bayview Foundation is a 501c3 organization, and it was founded in 1987. The foundation is a volunteer board of directors, and they work closely with the Board of Trustees. It is both residents and members from the larger community on the foundation. The mission of the Bayview Foundation, and I'm going to read it to make sure I don't leave anything out, is to subsidize financially residents who, through no fault of their own, are no longer able to support themselves while living at Bayview Retirement Community. That's really important in a life plan community, I think, because it gives you the assurance that you're not going to be kicked out in the street if something comes up. Now, that doesn't mean if you go to Vegas and blow your money, that the foundation is going to fund you. No, it has to be through no fault of your own. That's the caveat. And as I think Susan mentioned, if that becomes a problem, you would refer to Janie Hart, who is our social worker here. In order to accomplish that mission, you must have fundraising, and that is the essential purpose of the foundation, to assure financial solvency of the investment income. That's done through charitable support and contributions, donations, legacy giving. An annual appeal is held in which we send letters out to all of the residents and ask that they donate within their, as much as they can to support the foundation. And there's also a fundraising event called the Savoy. It was put on this past year for the first time in about 2 years. We hadn't been able to have it because of COVID, of course. And it was very successful, raised a lot of money. I forget the exact amount. I see another foundation member sitting back there. Maybe you can tell me. Well, it was a lot of money anyway. I'm sorry?
56,000.
56,000. Okay, thank you. And that's about it.
Thank you very much, Layla. And the gala, the Savoy Gala, is held the first week of September. And by the way, everyone in this room is invited, so it will be in September. Just going back to a couple of things that Layla, you touched on with staff and residents and the bonds earlier that you earlier talking about. Nancy Weinbeck has been here for over 21 years and now CEO for 3 years. I've been here for 12 years. Started off as a receptionist and now working in sales and marketing. It's been such a journey. But I think another unique part of Bayview is very much the bonds between staff and residents. And everyone knows each other's names here too. And so it's very medium-sized community, not incredibly large where you don't know anybody, and not super tiny where you're in everyone's faces or anything. It's a mid-sized community. And I really encourage the panelists, if there's anything that you want to chime in with anybody, please interject at any time. Okay, so last but not least, now, Dottie, there are a lot of differences with communities, and I'm sure most of you here have toured multiple communities around the greater Seattle area. We encourage that, by the way. It's a very proactive way of researching your right community of choice. So Bayview went through renovations in 2016 and completed renovations in 2019, and we have a plethora of services and amenities. And Dottie's going to take some time in sharing with the group here some of those distinctive services and amenities here. So I'm going to leave it to you, Dottie.
So it's my pleasure to talk about the services that at Bayview. And I'll start with culinary service, which you have gotten an example of. Dining is important. It's important both from the idea of healthy, nourishing food and from the point of view of the social aspect of eating together. That's one of the reasons I started looking at retirement communities. I didn't want to eat alone. I wanted to be someplace where I can enjoy meals, enjoy conversation, meet interesting people, and Bayview supports all of that. If you're interested in what our menus look like, there's a week's menus over on the table under the clock by the dining room. There's also a suggestion box there. So Dan, who's our culinary director, and Jim, who's our chef, checked the box. And if there's a meal that we haven't had for a while and you're craving, you can always put a wish list into the suggestion box and it will pop up. We're very good about that. We have a food committee. The food committee consists of a representative from each floor. So there are 7 residents on the food committee. We meet with Dan, we meet with Jim, we talk about, we can bring input from other residents and we get information as to what's coming up. Our dining room system is a pay-as-you-go, so you just pay for the meals that you eat. It's tallied up at the end of the month and it becomes part of your monthly bill. If you have any questions about it, it's computerized, so you can meet with Dan and he'll go through all of the meals that you've had and answer any of your questions. We mentioned open seating. When you come to the dining room, any seat that's empty is available to you, and you will be welcomed at that table. We don't hold seats. If there's a particular group of people you'd like to eat with, you can arrange to meet in the lobby beforehand and then go into the dining room together. Guests are always welcome. You can bring family, you can bring friends, make a reservation with Dan. He'll make sure you get a nice table, or you could pick the table you want to eat at, and there'll be a reservation sign on it. There's beer and wine available. You can order it by the glass, or you can order a bottle, or you can bring your own wine down. If you don't want to eat in the dining room, you want to do takeout, you can do that. You can take the food up to your apartment. You can take it up to the 10th floor and enjoy the view while you eat. And there's a lot of outside areas that you can eat in when the weather's nice. There's the terrace, and there are a couple of outside areas up on the 10th floor. If you're not feeling well, you can call down for room service. There's a slight charge for that, $5, but you don't have to come down, and we'd rather you didn't if you weren't feeling well. We have special dinners. Tonight's our birthday dinner. So we have a birthday dinner once a month. Last month, someone turned 100. This month, we have a resident who's turning 100. And the menu for tonight is shrimp cocktail and prime rib. There'll be fish available too. You know, our fish is so fresh that we don't know what the catch of the day is going to be until that morning when fresh fish is delivered. And there's always a vegetarian option. Holiday meals, you know, if you've always done Thanksgiving or Christmas at your home, you can do that here. This is your home, and you can invite your family and friends to join you in a meal here. We've limited the numbers of people because of the pandemic, so that we have a max of 6 people at a table and a max of 40 guests, just for our own safety. If you've been the hostess and you love to have friends and family over and you've downsized, that doesn't mean you can't do that. You can reserve space on the 10th floor. You can have Bayview cater a meal or a birthday cake if it's a birthday party, or you can do your own thing. And there's a barbecue up there. So when the weather's nice, you can barbecue for your friends. We have a happy hour. Right now it's been once a month, but I think in the new year it will be twice a month. So on Fridays from 4 to 5, you can go up and have wine, have beer, have a mixed drink. If we can talk Dan into it, we have margaritas, which seems to be the favorite among residents here. There's cheese plate. So again, we meet on the 10th floor. We get to enjoy the view, and we get to enjoy our friends. I didn't mention, if you're on a lactose-free diet or you're restricted gluten, you can make an appointment with Dan, and there are products available. We have a bistro. Unfortunately, the bistro closed during the pandemic, and we haven't had enough staffing to open it again. Staffing's been an issue in other senior communities and in restaurants around town. When it's open from 11 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's a totally different menu from our dining room. So you can check out and decide where you want to eat. There's pizza every day. There's an espresso machine. You can get smoothies down there. You can get soft ice cream. So we love going down there, and we're hoping that it will open up again before long. Housekeeping service. I think Chuck might have mentioned housekeeping. Housekeeper comes to your apartment once a week, cleans your apartment. Baby provides bed linens, so you get sheets, pillowcases, towels, toilet tissue. You don't have to worry about those things. They're taken care of for you. I think Chuck also mentioned maintenance. Maintenance will prepare your new apartment for you for when you move in, and they're available to do any repair work. We don't want you getting on a ladder or a chair to change light bulbs or do anything like that. They're also in charge of security. Our doors are smart doors. We use a fob to open the doors, and your fob is programmed for every door you're permitted to open. There's a record of anybody who enters your apartment. So if there's any question of someone entering the apartment while you're absent, you can check with maintenance, and they'll look on the computer and see who had access to your apartment. And there's cameras around the campus for security. There's someone here 24 hours, 7 days a week. So that's covered for you. Chuck also mentioned safety, the safety ambassador resident. There's a walkie-talkie on every floor. So your safety ambassador has contact with Command Central in the case of an emergency. We also participated in the Great Seattle Shakeup, the earthquake. What do I want to say? Earth, yeah. and I think we did well with that. So we do have security. And I don't know if Chuck mentioned there's a roster of everyone who's on the floor, whether they have a pet and what their mobility needs are. So in a disaster, we have that information that we can give to the fire department. And we have a device to help carry someone down the stairs if they're not able to do that themselves. We have a fitness center. So you're welcome to go down, use the fitness center, the treadmill, the new step, any of the exercise equipment. Charlene Watson is our director of fitness, and she will show you how to use the equipment, and she can work up a program for you to meet your exercise needs. There's classes, there's yoga, there's Pilates, there's Tai Chi, meditation. We have a pool. It's warm water, warm salt water. It's a therapeutic pool. You can go down on your own, or you can go down with a swim buddy. There are classes there as well, aqua Zumba and an aqua exercise class. When there's nice weather, you can exercise on the terrace. It's flat, it's safe. I think it's 10 times, somewhere between 10 and 12 times around is a mile. So you can get your mile in. And I read somewhere, if you're gonna walk a mile, you're gonna live another 3 years. So I try to walk a mile as much as I can. I think Sue mentioned we have children in the building. You're welcome to volunteer with them. They're visible. They love to see their grandmas and grandpas, which is what they call us. We have movies. Most nights we have games. We have folks who get together and play bridge, play mahjong, rummy cube, Scrabble. I think Susan mentioned classes. I don't know if she mentioned or Sue did that. Susan gave a watercolor class, and Susan does some food demonstrations. So we have that. And in the past, we've had our chef do some food demonstrations as well. We have a full kitchen in our studio. So if your apartment doesn't have a big oven or whatever you might need, you can use the stuff available in the studio. And it's set up so that there's a microphone and there's closed circuit TV. So if we have demonstrations, you can get to see everything. I think, I'd like to mention, in addition to classes that some of the residents have given, we also have OSHA, Lifelong Learning, who come and also give classes on a fairly regular basis. And yesterday we had someone come in to do a sing-along for Christmas carols. We liked him so much and so many people came that he's going to come back. So we're gonna have him come back maybe quarterly. Okay, what else? Excursions. We have a contract with Lyft, as well as having a couple of vehicles that are owned by Bayview. So we've got your medical appointments covered. We can get you to your medical appointments, and we do excursions to museums and the aquarium, and we go to see the tulips in the spring. We just did Bellevue garden lights for Christmas lights and rollbacks, and we're gonna take a little tour around town so you can see the lights downtown and in some of the areas that, go all out with lights. We go out for a luncheon once a month. We have an annual bazaar. It's our community outreach. It's our way to raise money, and each year we choose a different organization. So this year we raised $4,000. Actually, it'll be more than four because we got some IOUs. So it might be close to $5,000. And this year the money is going to the Jubilee Women's Center. We have a library. We have the bookmobile come. The library has a budget, so they can buy new books every month. We have a book club. We have a poetry open mic once a month. We have a chaplain, so we have vespers here in this room on Sunday evenings. We have a priest who comes, and we have a resident who can bring you communion if you can't get to Mass. This time of year, it's not just Christmas trees, it's menorahs as well. We have a Jewish studies class, and they are hosting a Hanukkah party on Monday. We have an LGBTQ affinity group that meets once a month. Jill mentioned we have a nurse that you can call. We have a dietitian. We have a social worker that you can make an appointment with if you have questions. We have coffee with the CEO once a month, so you can get together with Nancy and ask her questions, give her input about what you're thinking. We live in a dynamic neighborhood. There's the opera, there's the ballet, there's the rep, there's Climate Pledge Arena for sports and concerts. There's the Uptown Theater, which does the Seattle International Film Festival. There's restaurants down the hill, there's restaurants up the hill. Some folks go out to happy hours together. Some of the guys go out for coffee in the morning. There's all kinds of coffee houses around here. If you don't want to do any of those things, if your ideal retirement is just kicking back and putting your feet up, you can kick back and put your feet up at Bayview too. So.
Thank you so much, Dottie. Dottie, you're one of our veterans here. How long again have you been here? About 10 years. What's included in the monthly fee? There's a cheat sheet in the brochure, so feel free to peruse that at your convenience. You touched on fitness and pool, and I know there are some waitlisters here. There's waitlisters here, yes. And I haven't met some of you. For those who are interested, our waitlist fee is fully refundable. So for a single, it's $1,000, and for a couple, it's $2,000, fully refundable. And one of the benefits is access to our fitness gym and our pool. Now, it's been closed off to the outside for about 3 years now. But we are so excited to bring it back to our waitlist members starting January. So Charlene is newly hired and she's fantastic, has a great depth of experience, and that's another way for you to acclimate to possible future neighbors. But just a heads up, there's a waitlist form in our brochure too. If you want to talk more about it, we certainly can. But free access to our gym and our pool starting January, so we should members. So we are nearing 2 o'clock now. I would love it if we could do Q&A, because I know our audience here is dying to ask some questions to our experts here. So maybe just for a few minutes, we'll hand the mic over to the audience here. I'm wondering, Grace, can you help out with the by the way, Grace Michaels is our sales and marketing coordinator. She has been newly promoted, so she has worked behind the scenes in the full creation of this event. So kudos to Grace and all that she's doing here. So if you want to just throw up your hands, any questions, please? And we have 2 mics. Sorry about our mic situation.
Sure. Does the building, the entire facility have generators in the event of power outages that are sufficient to power everything?
Yes, we do. Our maintenance team is very much doing annual testing for that, and we've had scenarios where power has gone out in the neighborhood, but Bayview has operate a generator to keep us afloat. That's a great question.
Hi,
If you could mention your name too. Yes.
Hi, I'm Barbara Kay. I actually live in Stowe, Vermont, but my only daughter and grandchildren are here in Seattle, so I have to think ahead. Although I'm still pretty active in my community at home, but I am here about 3 months of the year. So my first question is, what's the average age of the resident here?
That's a great question. I think I don't know the global average age of all residents, but I can give you this data point. So before renovations in 2016, our average age of move-in was mid to late 80s. After renovations in 2019, average age of move-in is mid 70s. Now, if you take the whole global population of residents, we have people as young as our minimum age, 62. At one point, we had a couple where one met the minimum and one was younger. And we have centenarians here, so we have a wide spectrum of ages here.
Thank you. I noticed that you had an art history lecture on the list listed. I want to know if any of the residents get involved in giving lectures, such as a retired physician or a politician, or, I mean, you've got obviously a very highly educated clientele of retired people here who all have wonderful talents, and I wonder if it gets shared among each other.
If someone wants to answer that.
The answer is yes. Am I on? Can you hear me?
Go real close.
No, I don't think it's on.
We'll pass along.
The answer to that question is yes, we do. We have one resident, David, who lectures every week on Jewish history. And as you said, that there'll be a Hanukkah celebration is scheduled, and he also schedules other religious holiday traditions and shares them with the community. I myself have taught, I believe, 5 sets of watercolor classes, several before COVID and now 2 since COVID is over. There are other residents. Sue has done 2 cooking classes with our chef, and probably plans to do more. So yes, there are people who do share their expertise and their passions and their experiences.
We have musicians. We have musicians, play the piano beautifully, singers.
Can I mention, so sorry, I know there are a lot more questions, just really quickly, we had a resident, beloved resident, Randolph Hokinson, who was a renowned pianist, and on his 100th birthday, he put on a concert right here, and King 5 came, and it was just an amazing moment. That was many years ago, but he was so beloved and well known everywhere.
We've had people who've lived in other parts of the world and have shared some of their experiences with us. And we have a gentleman who's a professor, and he did a series on the Silk Road, which was really interesting.
Would you mind revealing their annual percentage monthly increases the last few years?
So the question was the annual rates, the historical annual rates. So that's a great question. And like many communities, Bayview has annual increases every January. Pre-COVID, our average rate increase was around 3%. And as you can imagine, throughout COVID, inflation in the market, it has averaged this year 6%. And so other senior living communities have mid-year raises. Bayview has not had one, and we do our best in not having mid-year raises. But we do have annual increase rates every January. Yes.
Do those percentage increases include the switch from not having meals included in the monthlies?
And your question was Joyce Doucette, our CFO, can answer that question a lot better, but
Johnny, please.
No, I just want to say that as far as food is concerned, our meal costs just are food costs, because employee salaries come out of a different pocket. The employee salaries are your regular monthly fee. Breakfast is $3.50, and that's anything you want: juice, pancakes. She goes for pancakes. Bagel, sauce, and cream cheese on Sunday, eggs Benedict. So you're not paying $3.50 for that. Lunch, I think, is $4.75. Soup, salad, sandwich, whatever. Coffee, cookies. Dinner, soup or salad, your entree. Dinner is $9.50. And when the prices went up, because they are going up a little bit in the new year, so it might be a little bit higher, Nancy didn't want dinner to go above $10. So you're still going to pay $9.50. But that's a different pocket than, when you go to a restaurant, you're paying salaries and you're paying rent, and that's a different pocket. It's just food.
That's why we have our resident experts here. They know everything. So our food covers the food costs. We don't make a profit off of the food as well, so what you're touching on. And you're correct, dinner is $9.50, and then lunch would be $6.50, and breakfast would be $4.50.
Thank you, Grace.
My name is Lynn Gertner Johnston, and Sue mentioned that if you have a passion, you can continue with that passion here. And I have a little dilemma that is related to barriers. My husband has a model railroad in the basement. It's about as big as the kitchens I've seen here, the entire kitchen. And I've been thinking about, could he rent a craft space? Because one of his sticking points is, but I won't have my railroad. So if anybody has thoughts about that, I would love follow-up. Thank you.
I don't know, I talked to the child care center. Maybe we can creatively figure out something. I have a railroader here too, so your husband will have a collaborator. Could I add one thing? I don't know if you're all feeling overwhelmed, but one of the things that overwhelmed me upon coming here was the cost. Thinking about the high monthly fee and the big fee that we paid to enter Bayview, and it just seemed overwhelming. And it was really good news later when I learned that there is a tax break that helps offset that. And every year Bayview goes through and figures out how much of our fees that we pay go towards medical expenses, which are tax deductible. And it comes out to about 25, 22, 23%. So you get a letter that when tax time comes around, you look at everything you paid into Bayview, and then you can tax deduct 25% of that. That made me feel a whole lot better about all that money.
Can I mention one thing too? I want to just add one thing. So Bayview is a buy-in model program, but a lot of people don't realize that we actually have month-to-month options on our studio apartments, and we have moderate income program as well for our studio apartments. And as a resource for prospective residents, if you ever want to, or you're curious about affordability or have just general questions, Joyce Doucette, our CFO, offers a preliminary financial qualification call. So that takes about 5-10 minutes. You don't have to have any paperwork. You're just in a conversation with Joyce. And so that's always available for any prospective residents. I'm curious, from any stage, from your first visit all the way to your final visit. Any other, oh,
Yes, nice job panel, Grace and Jill. Industry-wide, how unusual is not having meals include? Because I know some places say they want to make one meal, nutritional meal each day, and that's why they include it. So how's that handled here?
do you want me to answer that, or Susan, do you want to answer that? Go for it, if you want to answer too.
I think as someone said earlier, you pay for what you eat. And so there used to be a program similar to what you just described. That is no longer the case. So you pay for what you eat, and the servings are so generous. I will often get a lunch and eat half of it, and then I eat the rest for dinner. So you are in charge of your own food intake and what it costs. And so you may just eat $150 worth of food and it'll be $150 on your bill. Or if you eat more than that, why? Great.
And I want to add too, part of the beauty of Bayview and the community being resident driven is, for a long period of time, we had tiered systems with meals, and you're stuck in a 2-tiered system, 3-tiered system. But this was actually a resident driven change in the recent year. I hope it's the recent year, with pay as you go, where you have no minimum meals. You have to eat 3 meals. And it's been a well received program since its inception.
We tend to travel for a month or 3 months a year. How are the costs prorated if they are?
Well, you would still need to pay the rent, but you wouldn't have any food costs involved. The thing that I like about Bayview when it comes to travel, I don't have to worry about security or anything. I can just pack my bag, let Bayview know I'm leaving, and get on the plane.
Thank you, Dottie.
Is there a program in place for people who need to sell their home and get that financed in order to move in?
We had to do that. So it can be kind of stressful because you need to do a little planning ahead of time. When you get your move-in date, you need to be ready to put your home on the market as soon as you can after that. And then Bayview's really flexible. They give you 60 days to, I don't know, make the payment or something that you needed to make upon arrival. But if it goes 70 days, 80 days, I mean, they're very flexible. You just explain your situation. And in our case, we were coming in right as COVID was happening, which put a whole nother lever on the thing. We closed on our apartment the day before the clampdown, and I don't know what would have happened if it happened after that. But I would say you just have to deal with it, and Bayview will be very understanding of your particular situation.
Yeah, I had a son who was very against my coming here. And my job was to convince him that this was the right thing to do. And so he said, all right, Mom, I want to meet with Joyce Doucette, who was the chief financial officer. I said, okay, well, we'll meet together. So called Joyce, and he said, and I want her to have a spreadsheet. So fortunately for me, he also did a spreadsheet, and I thought, oh geez, what if they don't match her? But they were exactly matching to the penny. So fortunately, it all worked out. But I cannot tell you how wonderful Joyce was in terms of assuring my family that yes, this was going to work out and work out well. And she spent a long time with my son convincing him. And so I just can't say enough about Bayview's ability to work with us. I couldn't at first make down the down payment before I sold my house. And they said, no problem. When your house sells, you can make it then. they want you to come in here if you're able. And so they will do everything they can to make that possible.
One thing that I was curious about is there was some talk about the transportation availability and the vans available and lift available apparently. I know that there's parking in the basement, but it's quite expensive, and I'm looking at the probability that when I move in here, I'll be wanting to let go of my car. Certainly, if I'm going to travel, I would just call Enterprise and have them drop off a rental. But for short-term things, I know some retirement communities have available EVs for residents to use. Is there any possibility that Bayview will have a program like that?
I don't know about the future programs, but I can tell you what my situation is. We got rid of our car about 5 years ago, 2 or 3 years before we moved here. And we live only about only about 6 blocks down Mercer from where we are now. So this is the neighborhood we were traveling out of. And we have become fairly heavy users of the transit system for things around town. And I started using zip cars that I rented for, if I'd make a ride out to the suburbs or something like that. And so really that was not much of a transition for as far as transit went. So that's our situation now. We don't have a car. And I use a zip car, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a month to go visit a relative or something out of town. We use the bus quite a bit for things in town. And then if we go on vacations, we usually go to either Enterprise or Avis. But it's worked out fine for us. The medical appointments and so forth, our transportation is the responsibility of Bayview. And what they do is if the van is not available for some reason, they call Lyft for us. So when I go down to the reception desk and want to see my doctor by 10 o'clock, I go down by about 20 to 10. She calls the Lyft and the Lyft drives me down. And that's worked very well. They pay for it, but the cost never shows up for us. Now, I don't know about the future plans. I think the residents would strongly like to see, better, more broad split charging capability. There are a couple of charging places in the garages, but they'd like to see more so they would be practical. I don't know whether they're likely to move to actually having a car available or not.
We to be mindful of everyone's time, so we have time for tours as well. We have one more room for one more question.
Am I right in assuming that your 2-bedroom apartments are the most in demand? And at this moment, what is the vacancy factor?
That is a fair observation. I would say our south-facing units are the most desirable, and those range from studios, alcoves, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. But in terms of limited availability, certainly 1 and 2 bedrooms. There's a cheat sheet. That's a great question that is on the second page of our current inventory. And so please hold on to that, and certainly on the tour, actually it's going to be your full-size page on top, not in your brochure, but 8.5 by 11 size page. The second is an apartment worksheet. And so that gives you our current inventory. All right, well, so I think we can move on to community tours, but I first want to thank our guests here. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, this is much better. So thank you. Can we give a hand to our culinary services staff, Dan, Galvin, and everybody here. So there's a half sheet in front of you, and there are some people that I don't know if we had you registered. We're so glad you're here. Just go ahead and write your contact information if you like, and certainly if you'd like a follow-up call from me, there's a half sheet for you. So we're going to pivot to community tours, and we're going to break up into about 6 or 7 groups here. Maggie, do you mind coming up as well? You'll be part of our group. We're going to kind of. I didn't hold my hair. This is Maggie Rimmer, and she's going to join us on a community tour. So if you have more questions, all of us are all ears during the tour. So for those that are sticking around, you're welcome to tuck everything in your brochure. You might have to carry that around. If you leave it here, we can always come back and pick it up. So, we're going to divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. So, all right. And there's a chocolate truffle box for everybody. So please pop that in your purse or your pocket for later. All right, so we have 7 people, so our panelists, we want to kind of spread out and we're going to divide everybody. I would do a countdown, but more so just find your tour guide, pick anyone, and I'll kind of grab you this folks here. And if you want a bathroom break, we can hover here for a few minutes. Bathrooms are just around the wall here. And the men's bathroom is to the right exit here.
Coffee in the morning? Yeah. Oh, I think we're scheduled for.
Forgot your name, it's been so long. Jody, Maggie, good to see you. You keep coming back, when are you gonna move in? Soon.
Yeah, I just, so, I had it on my calendar at 10 o'clock.